manager, and we will have the privilege of hearing her, right? She's a seasoned product owner that successfully navigated the transition from a non-technical background to the product management world. So she wrote an article that I think we will be referring to today. So let's dive into this journey. I'm sure we're going to get some valuable insights today for anyone that wants to improve their product management skills. So thank you, Susana, for being here one more time. And yeah, I will put the article in the chat in a second. Yes. So if you have any questions, you can leave it on the chat section, or you can raise your hand and we'll take them. Edgar, over to you if you have any anything, any introduction.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you again, Susana, for being here with us. We are very excited to know more about your trajectory and how you managed to get into product owner in the product owner role, you know, and absolutely curious about first how you managed to get there, and after that to know how this technical knowledge that you have been acquiring is helping you in performing better at your role, right? So if you want to start and tell us a little bit more about your background and then how you got into product owners on the product owner role, that would be amazing. And we can take it from there, right?
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you for the invitation. So I started, actually my roots are in customer service. I worked in customer service for 6 years, and then I moved into IT recruitment, where I worked for 10 years there. And throughout these years, I always tried to get close to IT. That was actually always my dream, to be in IT. So I tried to be involved in any project regarding process improvement, tools improvement, new CRMs or applicant tracking systems. So I feel that that's how I lived a little bit of the tech world, even from on a non-tech area. And then 4 years ago, a little bit over 4 years ago, in the company where I was a recruiting manager, they decided to start building a B2B SaaS platform for managing the employee experience. And since I guess the CHRO saw that I got involved in the projects of implementing ATSs and configuring everything with the consultants, and I told him I was taking a Python course at the time, he said, okay, you're going to be the product owner for that platform. And I didn't really know what it meant. I was like, yay, okay, what does that mean? What is a product owner? We hired a lot of Scrum teams, but we didn't have POs. The POs were from the client. So I didn't really understand that role. And well, for me, that's how it started. And I thought, okay, let's learn what it means to be a product owner within the Scrum framework. And I also knew from working in the recruitment area and HR that whenever there was a PO that was not very good, it caused a lot of attrition and a lot of dissatisfaction in the teams. So I knew that it was crucial to do it right, because it was, you know, in exit interviews, we heard a lot about, no, the PO is a disaster and that's why I'm leaving. And we couldn't control it because they were from the client. So we, you know, again, that's what made me aware of like, hey, you need to be good at this. This is important. So that's how it started.
All right. That's quite a story. Okay.
Right.
So I'm curious now, since you mentioned that you didn't really know at the beginning what was there involved about this role, right? So what were like the best resources that you found to start learning about this new role that you were taking? And you know, how much time did it take for you to start feeling comfortable in the role?
Yeah, actually, it was very natural in a way. I took a course that is in Pluralsight from that is called the Path Scrum Framework Path. I actually wrote another article just to answer this question, but I took that course, which is probably like 15 hours of content or 7 hours. It's not that long anyway. But the author, Jeremy Jarrell, I really like that course because he really explains everything as if it's a company adopting Scrum and guiding first the Scrum Master and then the product owner through what it means to take the role. But also with the colleagues that I had for building this platform, the developers, I asked them, right? And they're like, okay, you need to write stories. I'm like, okay, what does that mean? And let me Google it, right? And okay, user stories are these, and this is the little template. And then I came with my little, as a user, I want to so that. And they're like, yeah, okay, but what does that mean? You need to add the acceptance criteria. Oh, okay, so yeah, let's think about this. And from the beginning, I received some positive feedback that, wow, you're really taking this seriously. Like you're really sitting down to write the acceptance criteria, to really explain it and flesh it out, and not, that's not very typical. And I thought, why? If that's what I'm supposed to do, why other POs don't do it? I mean, I don't know. I still don't know, but I guess it's the fear of working with developers. It was quite intimidating, to be honest, at the beginning to work with developers. But that's why I also try to, okay, let's define this clear. And I also think that connecting to my customer service roots, I had customers really calling me and shouting to me on the phone that my damn phone is not working even before smartphones. So I can imagine how for a lot of users that are not very tech savvy, technology can be very frustrating. So I also cared about, okay, let's define a good experience. Like, let's work together to make sure this is truly fleshed out, because otherwise it's going to cause that, poor adoption, bad feedback, not say, people are not going to use it, then it's not going to sell, and then nobody's happy, right? So I think maybe that also had an influence in like, okay, we need to define the experience right.
All right. Yeah, that definitely makes sense. And I can speak from the technical side, and we really appreciate, whenever we can find somebody who has that attention to detail, because we can really, start working on and doing our thing. So definitely that's always very, very helpful. All right. So now, could you tell me, when did you notice, or when did you realize that it would be better for you to, start learning a bit more about technical topics? Maybe if you have one example, or you can tell us more about that experience where you said like, oh man, I really need to know more about this. How did that happen?
Yeah, very quickly, very quickly, because also, again, from working in the IT, recruitment, HR world, I have a lot of friends who are developers, so I talk to them, and they, over beers or whatever, is like, no, business people don't understand, and they think everything's so easy. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I guess. And also, in the interviews that I made I always asked, what is your biggest challenge in the project? And I was surprised that the most common answer was, actually, it's not a technology challenge, it's a people challenge, like aligning and making sure that we're doing the right thing. That's the trickiest part of technology. I'm like, it surprised me, but I guess now I see why. So when we're starting building the platform, and it's like, let's run. Okay, so this is the first story, logging in. Second story, the dashboard. Third story, the exporting the reports. And fourth story, the network, because that's kind of what it was. And they're like, wait. Logging in, authentication. And I didn't really understand like all the complexities that come with an authentication or identity and access management system back then. But then in talking to the developers, they're like, yeah, and what's going to be the policy, and what if this, what if that, or that, like all the different scenarios. And I started thinking, wow, yeah, this is a lot more complex. I need to know how this works. And I need to take their advice seriously, because they are experts, right? They are the ones who are telling me, no, Susana, you cannot let people try, attempt to log in 1,000 times, because that means it's probably a hacker. So you need to block the account after a few attempts, maybe, right? So I saw that if I didn't understand, then I couldn't set the right expectations also with my stakeholders. I couldn't have the right conversations to say, can we build an identity and access management system for the company that then we plug into, instead of us building it, because our goal is to build a platform, for people analytics. It's not to build an authentication service. So trying to have these conversations really forced me, and I really felt like I need to drive this, right? It's not the developer or the architect, they're going to help me, but I am the face of the product. So I need to schedule those conversations with the architects or with the other departments. And I also don't like the feeling of feeling silly, or like a little bit like, I don't know what's going on, I just hear words. So I always try to almost transcribe the call, and all the things that they were talking about that I didn't understand, I just wrote it down. And then later I would Google it and go through it slowly and try to read articles. And it's like, oh, okay, that's what they meant. Ah, okay, that's why they said this is not possible. So also doing a lot of, learning on my own to really get up to speed.
Okay, so then did you start, trying to figure out these concepts, or it was just like a developer telling you maybe you should complete your Python course, or how did you know what to do after you realized that it would be good for you to learn these technical topics?
It was just based on the conversations that we had, like following whatever concept I was not familiar with, just trying to read a little bit about it, watch some short video on YouTube, or just getting an idea of how this plugs into the whole. And obviously, if APIs, okay, what is an API? Oh, all right, I kind of get it. If I want to dive into APIs, it's a never-ending story, so it's not necessary, but just at least having the foundational knowledge, so I don't tell them, no, guys, we don't need APIs, let's just go. It's like, no, wait, what are you talking about? Just to make sense and know where the conversation was going. That's what I was trying to achieve. This kind of foundational first code of paint, if you will.
All right, it's pretty cool. So, what would you say? If somebody else wanted to follow similar steps as you did, what would be the first things that you would advise this person in particular that wants to get into first the product owner role or something similar, and from there to start learning technical things, right? What would be your advice for them? And another thing is, would you consider that is an easy path?
It's easy if you are interested. So actually, I would first advise or work a little bit on the mindset, because I feel not being technical, the technical world is very intimidating. It seems so vast that I will never be able to do it. It's probably full of geniuses, and I'm not a genius. So having this fear, getting over this fear is important, first of all, and then also appreciating that it is important and it will help you in your career. It will make your role easier, and not only to work with developers, but also to have the meaningful conversations with stakeholders, because as a PO, you need to push back a lot. But if you are pushing back just to say, that's why a lot of POs maybe don't like saying no, because they don't feel comfortable explaining why not. So you need to be comfortable explaining why what the stakeholder is proposing or wants is not possible right now, right away, but how we can, break it into steps so we can get there eventually. So just understanding, I think, those two parts, that it's possible. I am a psychologist. That's what I studied in my bachelor's degree. So it was absolutely nothing to do with coding or anything technical. But it's possible to learn it. and like aim for baby steps basics and see the value in it. And then it feels like you're lost in the woods for the first maybe 6 to 8 months. Like this is not making sense, but all of a sudden it just clicks. And it's like, oh yeah, the system and the API and the other one and the call and the response, and she's like the Matrix, no? But it takes a while to get to that point. So just kind of like push through it, and make friends with developers that they can answer some of your questions, but don't expect them to be your teachers either. Just to have the conversation, to maybe cement some of your knowledge.
Correct. I think you are taking this very valuable approach. In general, I think it works pretty much for everything. Trying to understand the fundamentals and going from there to any other topic would always feel like you have more confidence and you understand what you are talking about. And I find that fantastic because I feel that sometimes we are that excited or really trying to get into new fields that we want to sometimes skip the basics, right? And then we realize that maybe that's not the best idea. So I think that's fantastic, and I really have to say that it's not a common practice, but definitely it's great that we are talking about that. And on the other hand, I see that you advocate plenty of time, after work, if we want to say it that way, to keep preparing yourself. So could you tell us a bit more about that? Is it something that you do like every day? How much time do you advocate to keep learning and improving at work?
I try to do. I think I have like, I don't know, semesters, like university semesters or periods. So, and actually I noticed that being here in Europe, where there's kind of, for me, coming from Mexico, it's winter 6 months of the year. That's the time when I feel like, and I see other people also, like that's the time when it's like, I want to be indoors. I can be in front of the computer. I can spend the evening or weekend taking a course. And then, in the summer or when the weather is really nice, not really. So I try to finish some amount of courses. Sometimes I set very ambitious goals for myself, like I want to do a bachelor's degree in a year. And then I just complete 3 courses and I'm like, okay, this is enough. Because it also takes time for that knowledge to start making sense, right? To start applying it. So I just want to know that every year I am completing some courses. And in the meantime, I'm reading articles or books or listening to podcasts. Well, nowadays more about product strategy and business strategy. That's what you can learn with podcasts a bit more about. But sitting down and spending time is usually like 2 or 3 courses per year. And then I get tired and then I'm like, okay, I need to live life and I need to enjoy other things. Yeah. Which feels a bit disappointing as well, because this year I started the Google Data Analytics certificate, and I finished 5 courses of 8. And it's like, I haven't finished it. And Python 3 programming specialization, and it's 5 courses, and I finished 3. So it feels like I didn't complete it, but I think, okay, I'll get into the mood again, and I'll complete it maybe next year, and it's fine. So it's also about forgiving ourselves for not learning every day. It's really hard, but just try to make progress every year.
Right. Yeah, that definitely makes sense. Especially, I guess, in summer, right? You just want to go out in Europe. It's just amazing. So I'm glad that you have that opportunity. Can you tell us more about how these skills that you got prior to getting to this position, especially you mentioned that you are a psychologist, right? How does that help you by the time that you are, doing your job, basically.
Yeah. And just to before we jump into that, Monique asked how to balance studying with other responsibilities. Honestly, sometimes I feel I enjoy learning a lot, so I forget about other things, and I'm kind of in this like flow of learning. So yeah, it is hard to strike a balance. I really enjoy learning, and I can go down the rabbit hole. But then it's like, oh, I have a relationship. Oh, I have friends. Oh, I need to go to the doctor and do things, right? So it is also, yeah, it helps that my partner is really understanding that I have this passion for learning. So she doesn't take it personal when I'm at the computer 3 hours on a Sunday, for example. But I need to not do that too often so that, again, I keep a balanced life. So it's hard. Yeah. So, okay, about psychology. The reason I went into psychology was I was already working in the call center when I started studying in psychology. And I went into it for the topic of motivation, employee motivation. I was a supervisor in the call center already, and I really like motivating the team. It's really important to keep attrition low, right? Because it's a very stressful job. So that's why I went into it. And that has been a theme, right? It also, obviously, in recruitment. And nowadays, how I see it is that for me, it's very important to have a motivated team of developers. One of the first developers I worked with as a PO told me the best environment in software development is when you feel you're hanging out with your high school friends. And then, you can build something cool. So I really try to aim for this environment and listen to them and address their needs as well and listen to their feedback. So also having like a continuous feedback culture with the developers, with other POs, PMs, stakeholders, etc. Like, harmony in a way. And also working with different personalities. I think that has helped me to understand that, different people are wired in a different way, and that's fine. There's nothing good or bad about it. That's just the way it is. And it's about finding the way to communicate with the person, to establish this trust, and to, work together in a healthy environment.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would like to ask something here, just not to lose the path that we are in right now. Susana, so what strategies did you apply to make developers participate in the refinement sessions or any type of session that you are leading? Because we know that, as you were saying in the article, sometimes they take their time understanding everything and they don't speak up right at that moment that we are expecting. And then we're like, no questions, okay, let's move on. And like 3 days later or an hour later, you get an email or something. So how do you encourage participation from the developers in your sessions?
I really just stay quiet. Once I finish talking, I stay quiet and I push through the awkward 1 minute silence. Sometimes that's what I started doing. And until, because it's all virtual, so it's until I see somebody unmute themselves. And I'm like, yes. Oh, yeah, I have a question. Da, 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 da. Okay, great. Let's start. Also asking them, right? Like, is this clear? Do you feel you could develop this, based on this? Is this clear? Or do you see any issues? But then like the question and then silence.
Right.
Long silence. And then, okay, if after a minute they don't say anything, it's like, okay, then let's vote. And sometimes when I move to the vote is when they say, well, actually, I have a question. Okay, yes, let's go. But I try to give them this time. And at the beginning, I also expected to be able to refine 15 stories in 1 hour. I thought it was like, quick, let's vote, let's go. And then I was like, oh, we went to one story, through one story.
Yeah.
Whoa. And then I talked to a friend in the team, and I said, this is very slow, man. And he's like, it's okay, it takes time. You will get a better pace. And for us to be able to get a better pace, it also meant that I needed to come more prepared for the session, right? And to learn from the questions they asked before, to consider them when writing the next story. And then 2 stories per hour, then 4 stories per hour, then 5 stories per hour. I feel the momentum, like it's going. But it is a process, right? They are learning how you work or how I work. I'm learning how they work. And some people never speak, and it's fine as well. But then they are usually in Slack. So
Right.
this and this and that, and okay, as they are developing, right? So I also encourage, like, feel free to reach out, and I try to be responsive as much as possible. Sometimes it really takes me the whole day to respond, but I know I can be a stopper, right? So I'm aware of that, and I try to be responsive.
Perfect.
That's great. I think we have a couple of questions from the audience, Susanna. So one is from Harry. He's saying, for business analysts aspiring to become product owners and product managers, what do you suggest for them to step up, and also how they could grab those opportunities?
I think the key is in stakeholder management, and also maybe daring to be visionary. It sounds a bit like silly, and that people will laugh maybe at the beginning, but the more you can say, this is my vision, this is how I see the product, this is what we can do, and also obviously tie it with business results, so we can improve sales, so we can improve conversion. The more you can talk to people in that way, I think the more it will be clear that you're ready for that jump into being the leader of the product. And yeah, evangelizing a lot about your product, about your team, what you're doing, what problem you're solving. Not all the problems you have in solving it, but what's the value that you're adding to the organization or to the client or whichever project you are. Like, what's the value that we're adding? Which is also important for the developers to know, of course, but for your stakeholders, your boss, clients, etc. So they will see that it's not somebody only that is doing, connecting the dots, but it's also seeing the big picture and can guide the product even to another direction that was not expected. Obviously, respecting the organizational norms, right? You don't want to go and say you're going to do something completely different, but just as much as you can speak about the vision, the value, and evangelize your product, that will, I think, help you in standing out even from other POs. Sometimes we fear doing that, again, for fear of sounding silly. Who am I to be a visionary? Well, we need to be.
All right. Thank you. And then we have another comment here from Himalata. Thank you, Susanna, for your valuable insights. The passion, hard work, and keen eye to observe the details and learn from that. And then what is the learning track or roadmap to reach that product manager or product owner role? Can you give some suggestions, please? Thanks.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for the comment. I took the certifications. I took the PSPO first. It's not going to, I expected 10 job offers after I finished my certification. None arrived. So it's not a magical recipe, but it really helped me understand more the product owner role, the value of Scrum and Agile methodologies, and also not only the product owner role in the sense of again, like Jira and stories and refinements, but what's beyond that, right? Why we're doing that, which is to drive a vision, to add value, to focus on how we can improve the user experience, and whichever business goals we have, how to move that towards where we want them to be with a product. So I feel that the certifications can help to learn the fundamentals, and well, applying for roles really. If I think the easiest is to do a lateral movement in a company. So if there are opportunities for product owner in your company, look at the job description, try to see what you have, what you don't have, work on what you don't have, and highlight what you have, and then apply and practice interviews, right? It's also, first is that you get the interview, polishing your CV, and then is that in the interview you really shine. And well, I mean, I always try to apply to jobs to practice these interviews, even if I'm not selected or anything. It's always a learning opportunity. So internal interviews, external interviews, just to make sure that your skills are relevant, right, to the market.
Mm-hmm. Right. That's great advice, especially practicing interviews and seeing these job descriptions and understanding what you might be lacking maybe, but in what aspects you can keep working. So eventually you will get there, right? As you put the effort, then there's always that possibility for everyone, I would say. Okay, so Gabby, do you have more questions for Susana? I got a couple of topics I would like to circle back to, but before doing that, wondering, do you have any questions at the moment?
I do, yes. Going back to like talking to developers, and like you said that as a product owner, we need to have a clear vision of the product and talk about it and promote it. But how do you handle situations where you are explaining the product vision to the team or developers especially, but they have different opinions, or they don't agree with some things, or they want to change some others?
Yeah, well, it's a collaborative approach. So then it's like, oh, okay, what are the concerns? We don't have this service, or this is not a native way to do it. In my case, I'm working with mobile apps. So sometimes even the design that the designer prepared, the developers are like, where it's heavily customized, it's going to affect the performance, the battery life. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, let's go back to the drawing board. Let's incorporate that feedback, which also helps them become part of that vision and makes that vision stronger, right? So I really try to incorporate the feedback. And when it's not possible because this is the way it needs to be, almost like, don't ask, just build this, which it also happens. Stakeholders, or some, maybe for legal reasons, you need to have a screen a certain way, even if it's not the best. Okay, let's try to make it as best as possible. And yeah, well, that's we need to live with it, but also not try to sell them like, no, it's fine, it's perfect, and you're wrong. Maybe we all accept that it's not the best way, but in this case, it's a hard requirement that we have. I challenge it, or I tell them I challenged it, but we need to go with this for now, and that's it. So just also be, you're working together, so just involve them in the decisions and push back as I myself try to push back whenever I don't see things right, or whenever I get feedback that something is not right. But we don't win all the battles, right? And it's like, we're in this for the long term, so we can live with this one.
Great,
Yeah,
thank
that's
you.
a nice approach. Please, Gabby, go ahead.
No, I'm good now. You can take over with your questions.
Yeah, so I was actually going to circle back to that part of communication. And I would like to ask you, Susana, how do you achieve, this level of communication with developers, especially, but also with the other stakeholders, right? So you were mentioning that you really try to understand their concerns, and like what's also like the purpose maybe that they have, and sometimes that doesn't really happen in a meeting where everyone is there at the same place. So what is your, or what are your techniques to communicate and to establish this trust that you were talking about?
With developers, I think it helps that I took some, or it helped me that I took some programming courses. So I am there banging my head on the keyboard on a Sunday, trying to get the for loop working. And then I see how hard it is. Then I see that, oh, it looks so obvious, count from the length of this, but not with the len function or whatever. Like, do it the hard way. Okay. So, and then you see that it was because you missed the semicolon, and like, oh. So seeing that, living that firsthand, even with introductory courses, right? I couldn't build an app. No way, not even close. But even just introductory courses help to say, "Whoa, okay, you know what you're doing if you can build an app." That on the one hand, and then understanding that for the most part, developers have a certain personality, right? They're more introverted. They're very direct. They want to do things right, so they can be very critical. But it's not about critical of me, right? So about not taking it personal is important. It's just understanding that that's the way they are, and just see where they are coming from, right? If you are building a house, you want that person to build things right. You don't want them to not take it seriously. And then, so I start with like, I trust you. You're smart. You know what you're doing. I trust you. And yeah, give me your advice, or I will listen to your opinions and not shut them down. That plus showing that I'm trying to do my best, that I'm trying to be a good product owner, prepare the stories, prepare the roadmap, backlog, be there in the meetings, involved, solving the blockers. Sometimes I feel that my role is a little bit of a mix of Scrum Master and Product Owner, as it's described in the Scrum framework. And I don't mind that at all, because, again, I am the face of the product. So I need to make everything possible to make sure that the product is a success. So also showing this ownership, I feel that makes them trust, like, okay, yeah, she knows what she's doing. And even like, how can we help you, right? How they offer help. I'm like, oh, thank you. So that, and also, again, pushing back on stakeholders, not letting them walk all over us, which takes practice, takes courage. It's not easy. It took me some time to not add everything that somebody requested into the backlog. But I knew, again, from that previous conversations that didn't work. And avoiding the anti-patterns, or what are really bad practices of modifying the sprint items heavily, adding items to the sprint that are we're not able to finish, and just listening to their advice, right? Like, Susana, we cannot add items if we don't have the APIs. Okay, that's true. Then back to the drawing board. Or, oh, Susana, we need to release more often. We are not releasing. We haven't released in 4 months. Can we release? I'm like, oh yeah, okay, let's start a cadence of releases, of continuous releases. Or, oh, Susana, the automated tests are not working because of this. Okay, let's address that. So really listening and letting them guide me into what are the issues that we need to solve. And it's a process, of course. It months to then they know that I have their best interests at heart, and I know that they have mine, at heart. And so we're we're in this together.
Exactly. Yeah, I think that's vital. When you are on the other side, on the technical side, if I may say, then you see that the person who is guiding is really, working with you and it's part of the team, right? Because many times you also get the other flavor, right? Where the product owner is like, this is what's gonna be and do whatever you want. Yeah, you can whine and cry, but that's it. And you should not only that, you should have that ready in 1 week or something. And as a developer, you don't even understand why. I mean, for you, it's just like the heavy extra load of work, and it's like, oh my God, I need to stop sleeping for 1 complete week. And I don't even understand because sometimes there might be some reasons, right? Like perhaps the business has, some compromise, or I don't know. I mean, there might be many things that you don't get to see because, like the product owner is not, sharing that with you, and you're just seeing the bad things. So this communication and this, like work with the team and really try to get there as a whole team. I think that's vital for the success of a product. So yeah, how much would you say? What's the percentage of time that you advocate to communicate in your job?
With the developers, I really try to only have the Scrum meetings, and except on Thursday, when we don't have any meetings, or well, they don't have any meetings. I don't schedule anything with them. They may talk to each other, of course, but as a team, we don't have meetings on Thursdays. And other than that is the refinements twice per week, 1 hour, the demo or the review, and the planning, and the retro, of course. Those are the meetings that we have.
Yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt. No, go ahead, and I'll ask you later.
A lot of it is asynchronous communication as well. So we have obviously the Slack channel, and I post their updates, good reviews, good feedback that we get from clients, any news. I try to make it only images, not slide decks, because I know that it's like, oh my God, why are you sending us a slide deck? But try to make it short and sweet. That, hey guys, we're going on the right way. We got praise. Look at this 5-star rating with a nice review and things like that. So that's how I keep feeding updates without the need to have lots of meetings. Yes, Gabi.
All right.
Yes. So in the retrospective meetings that you were mentioning, what's your experience on those? How do you manage like developers or other team members that might be like shooting a lot of complaints or just not talking at all? Like they don't have anything to say in terms of what went well, what could improve, and so on.
Usually, whenever I join teams, I try to start with being self-critical publicly in the tickets in the retro. To to also let them know, and then I see that everybody voted on it, and it's like, oh, yeah, everybody agrees that something that I'm doing is not right. But then we can discuss about it, right? Again, not taking things personal. I add my own tickets where I see whenever there are some issues. And just addressing everything, not getting defensive. I've seen retros where even the Scrum Master starts like, wait, but who added this ticket? And why? Because, we're doing our best. And it's like, wait, yes, we're doing our best, but it's not about that. It's like, we have a problem, or we have something that is not working, like a little stone in the shoe. Let's get rid of the stone in the shoe, right? Like, let's clear the path. And sometimes it's like we should be things like we should be releasing more often, or we're having too many meetings. The meetings don't have an agenda. I don't know what others I can remember, but it's like, okay, how can we address that?
Mm-hmm.
And it's true. At the beginning, we're having a lot of meetings, and it's everybody's there, and everybody's like, kind of like, oh my God, why am I here? So let's work on that, and not just say, well, this is the way it is, and we need to just deal with it. Sometimes it happens, right? We have some backends that are always troublesome and always a pain to develop and to test with those services. And yeah, then we can all cry together for a little bit and say, yeah, I mean, obviously, again, I'm escalating it, I'm trying, but it's just, that's the way it is, guys, sorry. And then we can laugh together that, yeah, that sucks. So acting on the feedback is key, and not taking it personal and encouraging the feedback.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Edgar, I have a question. It was a direct message, but I will read it.
Yeah, sure.
We have so many change requests in our project in Agile model. So how do we manage those? Do we need to maintain one document, or do we need to update in the story itself? How to file all of these for future reference?
Okay, it sounds like whenever I add a story into the sprint, it's almost set in stone. And that's my commitment to the team, that this is the right story that we need to develop. Now, if it changes along the way, depending on the process, right, and where we are in the sprint, it may change slightly, or maybe even the developer can say, hey, now that I'm starting to work on it and going through it, I see a little bit of improvement that we can do. Great, and we can change it a little. But then whenever it's already, let's say, in test, and oh, guess what? It's not red, it should be blue. Then we agreed, and I agreed with them, that's an improvement task. That's another task that's going to come in the next sprint. So, ouch, that, that sucks. It's really constraining, but I try to see that as a constraint on my side, that then I need to make sure and validate with all the stakeholders before I put the story in the sprint that this is the right way. And sometimes it happens, maybe twice per year it has happened, or 3 times, that I add stories to the sprint. But I always say, oof, sorry guys, really, this one we cannot wait. This one needs to go now. And they know that it's an exception and it's not the rule. So that's how I approach it. It's one story, and I need to make sure that that one is right. If then we have changes, that's another story, and we keep going. Sometimes, depending on the developer, they are a bit more flexible, and they say, oh no, I'm still working on it, so yeah, let me modify it now. And especially if it's something small. But if it's a significant change, then yeah, I think it's only fair that if I ask you to paint a wall blue and halfway through I tell you, oh no, actually, well, okay, in that sense, it makes sense, right? But if you already painted it and then I tell you it's red and I expect you for it to be done by the end of the sprint tomorrow, that's a little bit unfair.
So in summary, you would add a task to that story, but add it to the next sprint only.
Yes, a task that is kind of like linked in Jira, like relates to or is caused by this one. And then even in the title, it can say improvement.
Okay.
Remove the second screen because we realized it's not needed.
Got it.
Yeah, but you see, it's a lot of pressure on me to make sure that it's right. But I feel that that's the best way. And there's some flexibility, of course.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Yeah, so thank you for that question, Radhika.
Well, I would like to ask you one more thing about, you mentioned asynchronous communication, right? And we also talked about too many meetings, but at the same time, kind of following the methodology. So what's your take there? Is it, what would be the best way to balance sticking to a methodology versus, being flexible so the job can be completed?
But you mean being flexible to have more meetings?
To have less meetings, maybe.
Yeah, I really try to avoid meetings for the development team, except again the ones from the framework suggested by the framework, and also sticking to the time box. How I fear then that they may be too much in their own box of development, and I also don't want them to feel that way. So if there is a meeting that is more about alignment or what's coming next and so on, I definitely try to involve them early in the design and the conversations of new functionalities. But not everybody. We have leads. We have Android and iOS, so one lead per platform. So I invite those leads, and if they cannot make it, then they know that they need to invite somebody from the team to represent the platform in that meeting. But I try to make it when at least we are getting somewhere and not in the initial, up in the clouds conversation of, requirements take a while to become even a little bit clear, right? So when we're going from, okay, the vision and the long-term strategy into, and this is what we need, that's when I involve them and make sure that they are involved early in that design of the solution process.
All right, that's great. And since you mentioned the vision again, I got this question. I was wondering, what's your way to, keep up with the trends in the space of product owner, of course, but also in general, right? Technology trends, I would say, are hard to keep up. So to keep up with. So what are your best techniques to keep up with these trends in general?
Yeah, I follow. There's the Department of Product. They send one newsletter per week, I believe. I get the emails and I go through. They have announcements from different companies and who went public, who's raising money, what technology is coming up, etc. There's also a newsletter that is daily, Superhuman, that is all about AI. So like AI tool for this and for that, and I just kind of also go through it, and if there's something interesting, I go into that. I always enjoyed, even from many years ago, before anything product related, to listen to the product conferences from, well, back in the day, from Apple, now also from Microsoft, from AWS, just to see what it is that they are coming up with. Watching the keynotes. I listened to the keynote from OpenAI this week, and I'm like, woo, exciting, all the possibilities that can open. So I think that's a good way to stay updated in like the technology space and trying out what's new. I really enjoy being an early adopter. So I have my ChatGPT Plus subscription, and I was creating a GPT earlier, and just to see, what are the possibilities and how it feels. And for product is mostly podcasts that I listen to. The Product Thinking podcast from Melissa Perry is really good. She has interviews with product leaders from different industries. So that's the one I would recommend.
That's great. Maybe we can steal some links from you so we can paste them the YouTube channel, right? Once this gets released, and then the audience can go and grab some of that for themselves if you're okay with it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll share the links.
All right, cool.
And in the meantime, I have a short list of what I have heard from Susana today in terms of the roadmap that she followed. just for everyone to go through everything again. Scrum Framework Path, which was a short course, PSPO certifications, the Python introductory course, newsletters, which is the ones that you were mentioning right now, Department of Products, Daily Superhuman, product conferences, and product thinking podcasts. Is there any other technical introductory courses that we missed or I missed in this list?
I started a Medium recently, and I wrote 2 articles in preparation for this session. So you can find them there, and also on LinkedIn as well. And I have there some tips and tricks and resources that have helped me. But yeah, programming, just some introduction to programming. SQL, I also find SQL very helpful. And on the periphery of it's kind of techie, but it's very easy techie. So it feels very satisfying to do queries and find data, and also helps to defend points later on. So definitely to become more data driven, it's helpful. And yeah, just staying updated and being interested. How I do it is anything that spikes my curiosity. Well, let's learn a little bit about that. Just the first strokes.
Great. So I'm gonna pass my list here so everyone can see it. And it's actually time to wrap this session up. So if anyone else have any other questions, this is the moment. Or Edgar, if you have any other. And if not, thank you so much, Susana, for this session. It was a pleasure listening to you. Maybe we can schedule another one whenever you have time to talk about any other topic that you have a lot of knowledge of or you're passionate about. Yeah, thank you, Monique, for your questions as well. Yeah, so we're good. Do you want to say something else, Edgar or Susana?
I just want to thank Susana once again for coming here. I think this particular talk was very insightful, and we also got to know personally more about the other side. So thank you so much about that. And yeah, definitely I'll be looking forward to have the opportunity to be with you again in another Tech Social or any other event. So thank you, Susana, for taking time and for all the wonderful information that you shared with us today.
Thank you very much for the invitation, and anytime, and feel free to connect on LinkedIn. And yeah, looking forward to another session. Send your questions in advance so we can talk about them as well.
Definitely. All right. So thank you, everyone. We'll see you again in another Tech Social. Thanks for being here, and have a good rest of the day. Bye-bye.
All right. Thank you so much.